Hey guys, how's it going? If you're new here, my name is Adrianne, and if you're feeling my vibe, please subscribe. Alright, you probably clicked on this video because you're like, there's no way that actually happened. Like, I don't believe that. There's no way. Like, absolutely no way. And you know what? If it didn't actually happen to me, I would be saying the same thing. But, it did happen. Yep, it's true. I made $30,000 in one night, and this is how. So, yeah, let's get into it. Background to the story. I am a cocktail waitress, was a cocktail waitress, technically still am a cocktail waitress with a casino, but not working because pandemic. Anyways, yes, so I get tipped. That is what my position is. It is a tipped position. So that is how I make my money, through tips. So at the time I was working overnights, and the way that our shifts work is that for the overnight crew, you have to clock in by 11:40 and your shift ends at 6 a.m. So that week I was just super exhausted, very tired. The clientele the past few weeks weren't very great. They were very hard to deal with. And the job is very physically demanding and also can be very mentally and emotionally demanding as well. So that week was a no-go for me. And I forget what day of the week it was for my schedule, but I want to say it was like a midweek day for me. So my schedule then was, my Mondays were Fridays, I want to say, and my Fridays were Tuesdays. Yes, I worked Friday through Tuesday. And then I would have Wednesday, Thursday off. And at this point of the year, it was tax season. And for those of you who don't know, tax season is the greatest time of the year for a cocktail server, because that is the time of the year where people are getting their tax returns and they have extra money to spend. So that means more money into our tip cups, which is awesome. So it was tax season, and that means more people coming into the casino. So that means just more people to interact with, and just a lot more demanding for a cocktail server, which I don't mind. I actually really enjoy when the casino is busy. I don't mind when it's slow either, but it's just there's a certain rush that you get whenever there's more people. So for that night, we were a little understaffed for the overnight crew, which was fine. And for the first half, we had a few people, and I forget what section I ended up getting, but the way that we get our sections is you number them down from like 1 until how many of our sections are remaining, and then you roll the dice. And whatever number you roll, that is your section that you get. That corresponds to the number. And I rolled, I want to say, blue. So that was my first half. My first half I made $180. So that's really not bad. That's actually pretty decent money for just 2 hours on whatever night it was. For my second half, I didn't roll, if that makes sense. So I think it was between me and one other person, and I'm pretty sure that other person wanted to make money that night, and I was just so over it. I just wanted to go home early, so that would have meant me going home at like 3:30. And I was just like, you know what, since I'm going home early, can I just have purple? And for those who don't know the charts in the casino that I work for, which I'm assuming all of you don't know the charts because it was really just between the cocktail servers who knew them. Purple is like, it's a smaller section and there's not as many people. So your chances of making a whole bunch of money isn't the greatest. I mean, you still make money, but it's not like the best money to be made out there. And I was just over it for that week, and I was going home early, so I was like, you know what, can I just have purple? And everyone was like, yeah, that's fine, you can go ahead and have purple. And so I had purple. So my second half, I went into purple, and then like, I want to say 15 minutes into my second half, my managers pulled me aside and they're like, hey, so change of plans. We need you to go and serve this one person, that one person only in this specific room. We had a very important person come in, a VIP guest, and they have a lot of money, okay? Like, a lot of money. Like, you can't even imagine how much money they have. A lot of money, like Jeff Bezos amount of money. Like, it's a lot, okay? Like, a lot of money. Very high profile, and yeah, so because I had rolled purple, it was my turn to serve him. The high limit cocktail server that night could have stayed and served him for the remaining time that he was there, but she wanted to go home, so that meant me going to serve him. And my managers were prepping me, telling me what this person is like, what to do, how I stand, and all of that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I could do this. And mind you, I was very nervous because I had never done this before. Well, I mean, I've served before, but I've never tended to such a high profile guest before. And yeah, it was nice. I enjoyed it. It was very nice. So they prepped the room very quickly for him. He brought himself, obviously, his girlfriend, and 2 guests and his driver. So they had the room set up with like desserts, and they ordered steak, and he asked for alcohol, but after 2 a.m. you can't serve alcohol in Pennsylvania. That's just how it is. Crazy, I know, but whatever. That's just the rules here. I would change it, but whatever, it's not up to me. So it's like 3 in the morning, and sorry, my eye itches. It's like 3 in the morning now, and he's playing, and okay, let me just like set this up for you. So this is him. He's playing right here at the table with his girlfriend and his friends, and his driver is like over here. And I'm standing like back here with my tray like this or like this, and just minding my own business, just waiting for him to ask me for something, anything, like something. But he didn't really need anything for the night. Except for the one time where he asked me if he could have alcohol. I was like, no, sorry, believe me, I would if I could. But cannot. His driver asked me for coffee a few times, so I would go out there and get coffee for him. But I think the one thing that he asked for from me was some water, and so I gave him some water. And, and one of the other guests asked for an extra large Shirley Temple, like Sprite with grenadine and no cherries, but he wanted extra grenadine in it. But he wanted like a picture of Shirley Temple. I know. Very large dude. Like, dude was super tall. I'm talking like basketball player, super tall. And this was his friend, not the VIP guest. I mean, I guess you could I guess the friend was a VIP guest too, but this is about the guy who tipped me. So, you know, they're playing, they're tipping me every now and then, and he calls me up and he's like, hey, what's your name? I'm like, oh, hi, my name is Adrianne, nice to meet you. And he's like, oh, hey, Adrianne, it's nice to meet you too. And we just start having small talk, and he's like, so tell me about yourself. Do you have a boyfriend? I'm like, yeah, I'm actually getting married. And he's like, oh, cool, congratulations. I'm like, yeah, I'm super excited. We have dogs. He's like, no way, I have dogs. I'm like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And we really clicked. Like, I don't know. But we just had a really nice conversation, and he was very lovely to talk to. And his girlfriend was super sweet. She is stunning. Oh my goodness. I'm not supposed to like tag them or anything, but believe me, I would if I could. But just like privacy stuff. protection for me and them, I guess. That's what this would be, for not like name dropping and stuff like that, and just out of respect. But yeah, so so we're talking, and he's losing. He's down like a few $1,000s, and I'm like, you know what? It's you know, just keep playing. It'll get better. Or, you know, it's fine. This happens. Like that kind of thing. Just like kind of like boosting his morale, being there to support him. And then I tell him, you know what? Maybe the next hand you'll do better. And sure enough, the next hand he did better. And let me tell you, by better, I mean he won $2 million. $2 million, okay? Oh, $2 million. That is a whole lot of money, okay? That is like, I have never seen that much money in chips ever in my life until then. And after that, I haven't seen it since. Wow. $2 million. And after all the time that, you know, I spent talking to him and all of that, you know, we keep talking, and he's super excited, like, congratulations, this is amazing. He's like, oh, thank you so much. And he takes one of the chips. So it was a stack of gold chips. And if you don't know what a gold chip is, it's about like that big in terms of like poker chips. So a poker chip is kind of like this big. Gotcha. And then a gold chip, it's also a poker chip, but it's about that big. And it's $25,000. That is the value of a gold chip, $25,000. And he takes one of those gold chips and he says, congratulations on your wedding. And he puts it on my tray. And let me tell you, I feel like I just kind of like blacked out at that point. Because that is a lot of money. I don't even remember what I said to him at that, when he gave me that. Because it's like, what do you say to that? That's $25,000 on top of all the other money that he had been tipping me that night. Like, that is insane. Absolutely insane. And I'm pretty sure I said thank you, because, you know, I say thank you to everybody who tips me, but like $25,000. Oh my goodness. That's more money than some people see in a year. Like, and he just gave it to me. Like, I still have a hard time wrapping my mind around that, and that it actually happened. Because it's like, how did I deserve that? You know, like, what did I do to deserve that, you know? But I don't know. Anyways, so he's super excited. He tipped me that amount, and he's like, okay, let's go take a picture. Let's take a picture right now. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's take a picture. And he says, okay, give me your tray. So I like tried handing him my tray, and he's like, no, you hold the tray. And I'm like, okay. So I'm holding the tray, and he stacks $2 million worth of poker chips on my tray. And he's stacking it, and I'm holding my tray, and I'm like, okay, because it's $2 million. $2 million, that is so much money. That is more money than I will probably ever see ever again in my life, okay? Like, I mean, God willing, maybe one of these days I'll be able to make enough money like that. But right now, I'm sure as hell I'm not seeing that money right now. And I haven't seen it ever since, but that is $2 million on my tray. And you know what this man asked me? He goes, why are you shaking? And I'm like, because it's $2 million on my tray. I didn't say that, obviously. I just kind of like giggled it off, because what do you say to that? But he's like having a great time, and he takes a picture with me and my tray with the $2 million on it. And my goodness, I just cannot even believe that, man. That was wild right then and there. And he says, all right, Adrianne, I want you to come with me to cash out. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, well, can you do that? I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I can do that. I was told that wherever you need me, I can go. So I went with them. So I went over to cash out, and he cleared the casino out of all of its cash. My casino had no dollar bills, y'all. None. Because he cleared it out. He took all of their money. It was so much money that they had to write him a check for the remaining money that they owed him. Insane. Absolutely insane. And he says, hey, would you like me to cash out your money for you? And I said, no, that's okay. And you know what? Hindsight is 2020, baby. Because if I had known that I was gonna get taxed on that, I would have let him cash it out for me. But I didn't know any better. But also, deep down, I feel better knowing that I paid the taxes on that and that I have the actual paperwork stating like, hey, I made X, Y, and Z money. Like, here's the proof for me to put it into the bank, because if I were to just like show up to the bank with that much money, they would be like, where did you get this from? Like, we can't deposit this. Like, that's some dealer stuff right there. Yeah. So crazy. And while he was cashing out, he was like, hey, do you mind getting us some water for the road? I'm like, yeah, sure, just give me 1 second, I'll be right back. So I like run over to the service bar to go get him some water, and then I run right back to get him the water. And he wants to tip the pit managers some money, because, you know, they were there with him throughout the whole night, and they're like, no, we can't take your money, because as managers, they legally cannot take a tip. So the money that he was going to give them, he gave to me, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like, he's literally just giving me money for nothing at this point. And it's like, why? Like, it's mind-blowing to me that I don't know, you guys. I'll get into that in a little bit later, because I'm gonna start crying now. Okay, so he goes home for the night, and I still have my tray and my tip cup, and I like run over to the service bar because I have all this money in my cup, and I don't want anybody to see it and like snatch me or something, because that's a lot of money, like a lot of money. And I'm in the service bar, and I call Dion, and I just start sobbing. Like, I am tears streaming down my face. My makeup is all over the place because crying, and like uncontrollably crying, you guys, because it's just truly unreal. Like, that amount of money was more money than I was salaried for my previous job. Like, that, honestly, such a blessing. It was really such a blessing, because I was really trying so hard and working so hard to get my life started and get back on my feet and just live my life, like just start doing amazing things and have the money to do so. And man, so I'm on the phone with Dion, and I tell him, like, babe, you'll never believe what's happening, but I'm like crying, so I don't think he can understand what I'm saying. And he's like, oh my goodness, what happened? Like, did somebody hurt you? Or like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I just got tipped $30,000. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yes, $30,000. He's like, no, there's no way you got tipped $30,000. I'm like, no, it happened. And then my coworker Naomi comes in, and poor thing, she was like, are you okay? She was so scared. She really thought I got beat up or something. And I'm like, babe, I'll call you back later, because yeah. So I hang up the phone with Dion, and my coworker's like trying to console me. She's like, what happened? Like, did he hit you? And I'm like, no, I'm fine. And she's like, did you get tipped a lot? I'm like, yeah, like, you tipped me a lot. And she says, well, like $5,000. I'm like, no, it's more. And she's like, what do you mean it's more? And I had a napkin covering my tip cup so nobody could see. And I pull up the napkin so she could see it, and she starts crying, and she's like, oh my goodness, and she's like jumping up and down, and she's like, this is so amazing, like, this is so awesome, like, how? And I'm like, I don't know how. And we're both crying in the service bar, and we call my manager because, you know, we both needed to go home at this point. It's 5 in the morning, and we were supposed to go home early, and the casino was dead anyways, so it was time for us two to go home, and then the other 2 overnight girls had it for another hour. And my manager comes in, and he's like, what's going on? So I show him, and I tell him what happened, and he's like, oh my God. I'm like, I know. And he's like, okay, well, let's walk you over to the cage so you can get cashed out. And they had to call the cage manager to cash me out for that. And yeah, that was $30,000 in cash, you guys. Abso-freaking-lutely insane. I had never seen so many dollar bills in my life. Like, thick stacks. I was scared, to be honest with you, very scared. I could not believe it. And just the thought of having that much money on me was stress-inducing, anxiety-inducing, and my goodness, I never would have thought in my life that that would have ever happened to me. Absolutely insane. And because it was so much money, we had to get the head of security, and because it was so much money, we had to get the head of security to like walk me out into my car. But here's the kicker, you guys. So I had so little money that I was literally putting like $10 in my car every time I get gas. And I was like making my car run on fumes, and that night I was supposed to go and get gas after work because I had like this much gas left in my tank. Again, running on fumes, and I'm telling the head of security, like, I need to get gas. And he's like, you can't get gas with that money in your car. Are you insane? I'm like, yeah, but if I don't get gas, I'm not gonna make it home, and I feel like that's gonna be worse than getting gas. He's like, no, you need to go home. And I'm like, no, but really, I need to get gas. And my coworker Naomi, she's like, no, it's okay. Like, I'll drive with her to go get gas. So thank you, Naomi. So she drives me to the gas station that's nearby to go get gas. And I fill up my gas tank for the first time in months because I had money to do so now. Wild. Alright, so it's like 5:40 in the morning, and I'm driving back home, finally, after getting gas, and I call my parents, and the first one I call is my mom, and I'm like, man, I really hope she picks up, and I know it's super early, but, you know, she wakes up early to get ready for work, and oh, I'm pretty sure it was a Sunday night. It was a Sunday night, because it was Monday when I got off of work. Yes. Okay, so it was a Sunday night. And so I call my mom. And I'm like, hey Mom, good morning. And she's like, good morning. Like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, so I have something to tell you. She's like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, I made $30,000 last night. And she was like, what? I'm like, yeah, I made $30,000. And she says, you mean $3,000, right? And I'm like, no, Mom, add an extra 0. And she, quiet, absolutely, like, I thought she had hung up. And I was like, hello? She goes, yeah. I'm like, yep. so I tell my mom and she doesn't believe me, and she's like, what do you mean you made that much money? I'm like, I made that much money. I served this person and he gave me this money. And she's like, oh my goodness. And I call my dad and I tell him the same thing, and he's over the moon because he's like, wow, you have all this money. That's insane. That's amazing. And of course I tell my parents, like, please don't tell anybody. I don't want anybody to know this. Just because I don't know, I wanted to keep it like my own secret, my own thing. Like, I didn't want people coming up to me asking me for money, or is that selfish? No. Or I didn't want people hanging out with me or communicating with me just because I have this money now. And yeah, I wanted to keep my relationships just like very genuine, which we will get into that later. And I finally get home, and Dion's upstairs, he's gaming, and I come home and I have this manila envelope filled with money, filled with $30,000, and he's like, what is that? And I pull out the wads of cash and I just start bawling my eyes out, and Dion starts crying because he's like, oh my goodness, you weren't lying, like you weren't joking. I'm like, no, I wasn't joking, it was real. and the guys he was playing with on like through Discord, or like communicating with through Discord, they heard what happened and they're like, oh, like that's legit, like that actually happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, like yes, look at it. And he's like, I'll call you guys back later, like, and he's hugging me, we're both crying, and there's just the money there, and wild, it was absolutely wild. And I did end up getting taxed on that money, so this was the first time in the casino's history that somebody had ever been tipped that much, and they had to create like new rules for how things get taxed, and or like how that gets taxed, and like just how that all goes about. So they had to create a few rules and like guidelines and all of that. And one thing that they didn't really handle very well was the spread of information. So literally as soon as I stepped foot out of that casino, people knew, people were finding out like, hey, this person got tipped this much money. And I didn't know that until the next morning. Like I woke up and my phone had just blown up, filled with missed phone calls and text messages from my coworkers asking me like, hey, did this actually happen? And yeah, my one coworker, she ended up calling me again, and I picked up and she was like, hey girl, congratulations. And I'm like, congratulations for what? Because I didn't want to tell anybody. Like I wanted to keep this very secret because I didn't want people finding out, and again, like people talking about me and stuff like that. Like I don't like that. Like that was just too much pressure for me, especially me being new to the casino at that point in time. Like I hadn't even been working there for a year yet, and that happened. And like the girl who was in the room before me, who could have served him, like what was she gonna think? Like she obviously is gonna hate me now at this point, because it's like that was money she could have made. But again, we'll get into that later. But she's like, congratulations. And I'm like, how did you find out? And she was like, well, my boyfriend's cousin who works at this other casino found out and told my boyfriend, who then told me. And I'm like, what? People in other casinos know about this? And she's like, yeah, girl, like you're famous. I'm like, what? Yeah, so it got spread to all the other casinos in the Philly area, that somebody had been tipped $30,000 or however X amount of money that they decided to tell. And let me tell you, coming to work the next day was so nerve-wracking. I honestly did not want to show up to work the next day, but I did anyways because that's my job. That's what I love to do. And I was not going to let people think I was just in it for the money, because I wasn't. I mean, I was, because it's my job, but you know, I'm still going to show up to work. Doesn't matter how much money I'm making the night before. And as soon as I stepped foot out of my car, people were watching me. They were just like looking at me and whispering behind my back, and I was walking through the break area, like where people get food and stuff like that, and the room kind of went quiet and people started whispering, and I heard this one person say like, oh, that's the girl who got tipped $10,000. I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, well, it was actually 30, but like, why are you even talking about it? Anyways, yeah, just the stares and the whispers. Oh man, that was horrible. They did such a bad job, and they did me a disservice by allowing that to happen. And I told them like, hey, I don't feel comfortable right now. And like the higher up people in the departments, they didn't do anything about that. And that's really something that I have an issue with, because that was my safety on the line. And yeah, that was not cool. And I will never forget just like the tension in the room when I showed up to pre-shift, and just nobody talked to me. Nobody talked to me. I mean, I had a few people talk to me, like my coworkers from the night before and like a few other people from the earlier shifts, but the majority of people did not talk to me. Like they just kind of looked at me, and or at least like to me that's what it felt like. But it was just like this huge elephant in the room, and it was very uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable. And yeah, it wasn't fun. But I learned, I guess through that experience, I learned who I could trust. Later down the road, I learned who I could trust. The person who was supposed to be working in the room that night pretty much hates me. Yeah. But that's okay. I can deal with that. But man, that was rough. Somebody had actually posted it on Facebook saying, oh, my coworker got tipped X, Y, and Z money. Like, why isn't she sharing it with the bar porters and the bartenders? Like, why didn't she tip anybody out? And I'm like, because it was just me in that room, and after a certain time, you don't tip anybody out. Like, why am I gonna tip out a bartender if there's no bartender to tip out? I always tip my bartenders decent, like pretty good, and sometimes even more than what like is a allotted amount that you're supposed to tip them out. But I didn't have a bartender, so why would I tip them out? And the bar porter, I didn't have a bar porter that night either. Like, there was nobody there. It was literally just me and the other girls. And let me tell you, for the other girls, I did share with them. I did give them some. Because why not? I had been working with these girls for almost a year at that point, and I really cared about them, and I was like, you know what, if I'm gonna get blessed in this way, I might as well bless you guys too. So that's what I did. And I didn't tell anybody that, still haven't told anybody that, but now I'm telling everybody that. So hello world, yes, I shared with some of my coworkers, but I'm not gonna tell you how much. If they decide to tell anybody how much, then go right ahead. But yeah, people were really angry at me, very mad, saying like, oh, she should have tipped somebody out, she should be sharing with everybody. And I'm like, for what? Like, you weren't there. Like, why would I have to share that with you? And yes, I did share with the people that were there. I did. And I paid taxes on it, so I didn't even get to keep all the money, so blah, blah, blah. But, yes, for those of you who have been wondering how I can have the house that I live in, well, that is why, because I made $30,000 in one night, thanks to a very generous VIP guest. Thank you so much. If you're watching this, I highly doubt that you're watching this, but you know who you are, and you have no idea how eternally grateful I am to you, because you helped me start my life, and I am forever, forever grateful for that. The money that I got, I did not touch it for the wedding. My wedding did not see any of that money. I still worked 6 days a week to pay for my wedding and to save for my honeymoon and to save for other things. But that money went straight for a down payment for this house. Yep. People were asking me, so what are you going to do with that money? And I said, I'm going to buy a house. That is what I'm going to do. I am going to buy a house and move out of the place that I am in now, because I do not like it there. It is run down and I could do better. And that is what I did. I saved that money. I worked 6 days a week. I saved even more money. And I bought myself a damn house. That is what I did. Yes. And now we're here. In good old 2020, December 2020, living in the house that money helped me get. Unemployed. Kind of. Personal assistant, working part-time. But, yeah. I got tipped $30,000. I made $30,000 in one night, and that is something I will never forget. And I hope that one day you get blessed like I was. So, yeah, because that's what it was. It was a blessing. It was a huge, huge blessing. And I pray that you guys will have a blessing of a similar experience. But yeah, that's all. That was my story. That is how I made $30,000 in one night. And no, it wasn't through like an MLM or real estate or or some other crazy way. It was out of the kindness of a VIP guest's heart. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a big thumbs up. If you thought it was interesting, please go ahead and share it. I'm sure other people would love to hear this story. I don't know, if I was a stranger and somebody had a video that said, I made $30,000 in one night, I'd be interested in watching it. So go ahead and share it. Share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, your frenemies, I don't know. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, please give this video a big thumbs up and please subscribe if you're feeling my vibe. I will see you guys in my next video.